Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. NBA playoffs are looking like, we looks like we got about who we think is going to win each round, the first round. Okay, Lakers won last night. They're up 2-1. Going to get into that in just a second to lead off the show. You got the LA Clippers, who are in a must-win game in Game 3 of the first round against the Dallas Mavericks. Who'd have thunk it? Going to get into that later on the show as well. Also, this whole situation, Tim Tebow now, it's actually it's an accomplishment. And it's a story that he didn't drop a pass in practice today with the Jaguars at OTAs. Going to get into that whole saga later on the show. And also, I was dead wrong about the Miami Heat, folks. Dead wrong. Couldn't have been more wrong. I'm going to discuss that. They're down 3-0 in embarrassing fashion, save for Game 1 against the Milwaukee Bucks, who clearly look like the better team. That is all coming up. But first, LA Lakers. Said it yesterday's show. I believe the Lakers would win this game at the Staples Center. It's actually the first playoff game that they've had at Staples in the LeBron AD era. Obviously, last year they were in a bubble. Yeah, that whole situation. Speaking of that bubble, that will definitely apply to what I'm going to talk about with the Miami Heat, but I'll save that for later in the show. But Lakers won Game 3 last night. This series is over. LeBron has found his rhythm. AD was excellent once again. Looking at his numbers right here, dropped another 34 points and got another 11 rebounds. Drummond had a pretty quiet night. Andre Drummond's biggest moment was on the bench cheerleading LeBron's fadeaway, right? So, you have that going on, but LeBron found his rhythm, got guys involved early. Feel like he was, I agree with Chuck during the halftime show. I felt like he was a little passive in the first half, but he got aggressive in the second half, and he looked like LeBron James in postseason form. We saw this a little bit in Game 2. He's starting to get that leap back, that bounce back that we normally see from prime LeBron James. We haven't seen that really since the ankle injury last March. So when I look at the series, I say, okay, the Lakers now have home court advantage. They secured that after their Game 2 win in Phoenix. They won Game 3, convincingly. Even I'd say, looking at the score, 109-95, it didn't even feel that close. I mean, the Phoenix kind of cut it down to 8 points or so with about 2 minutes left, but the game was over. The game had been decided in about the third quarter. Lakers got out in a big run, and that was pretty much it. Schroeder played well, and when you look at Phoenix, I think it further validates what I've said, that Devin Booker is the best player on the Suns, without a doubt, but Chris Paul is the most valuable player on the Suns. I say Chris Paul will be in my top 5 in the MVP discussion. I think I had him at like 4. I had like Julius Randle, Chris Paul, then I actually Giannis at 3, Jokic at 2, and Steph at 1. But I think we're starting to see, CP3 is the MVP, because obviously he hurt his shoulder in Game 1. He looked limited the rest of the game, looked limited the entirety of Game 2, and then yesterday put up the stat line of 7 points and 6 assists. That's not playoff Chris Paul. And we see his limitations because of this shoulder issue. Devin Booker did not shoot well at all last night, 6 for 19 for the field, only 19 points. He's their scorer. He's got to be better. And maybe as Devin Booker's career progresses, and he's still very young, but maybe as it progresses, he'll be, he can be that go-to guy in these big playoff situations. But this is his first playoffs. I'm sure he'll bounce back with a big Game 4. But thus far, DeAndre Ayton's been the best Phoenix Sun in this series. But when I look at this, I say, okay, Lakers got home court advantage. Chris Paul's clearly beat up. They go as he goes. This series is over. Lakers got the momentum. LeBron's playing great. AD's looks like AD. I called him A Disney after Game 1 because he was just awful in Game 1. It was not aggressive. DeAndre Ayton just took him to school in Game 1. And, since Game 2, AD's looked like AD. Back-to-back 34-point games. He's been excellent. And so when I look at it, I say, and I said going into Game 3, I believe if Phoenix wins Game 3, if Phoenix had won Game 3, that I believe this was going to go to a 7th and decisive game sometime next weekend. But if the Lakers won game 3, I said they might have an opportunity to close the series out a couple games from now in Phoenix in game 5. And that certainly looks to be the path it's on. I don't want to overreact to a game 3 win and clinch the series. They still got to win some more games. But Phoenix defensively hasn't been great. They were good in the first half, but they just fell apart in the second half defensively. Chris Paul is very limited with that shoulder issue. Devin Booker did not play well at all. And you see the Lakers are clicking on all cylinders. They are starting to look like that bubble team that we saw last year and how excellent they were in the playoffs. They lost game 1. It's the same story again. It's crazy. They lost game 1 to Portland. Portland looks like clearly the better team, and the Lakers reeled off 4 straight and took the gentleman's sweep. The next series, they lost game 1, and Houston looked like clearly the better team. The small ball lineup, right, with Westbrook and Harden and PJ Tucker and Covington. And what did the Lakers do? They reeled off 4 straight wins, gentleman's sweep. So this is essentially exactly what we saw last year. Lakers don't look very good at all. Nobody plays well for them in game 1. And, AD and LeBron come up small, and the rest of the series, they play like MVPs. So they play like they're the defending champs, which they, of course, are. So I think this series is over. I don't see how Phoenix can win at this point. Are you telling me that the Suns can win 3 of the next 4 against the defending champs? I don't see that happening. I can't, barring injury to anybody significant on the Lakers, I can't see it happening. I really can't. So Lakers fans, rejoice. Looks like you're moving on to the next round to play, I guess, either the Portland Trailblazers or the Denver Nuggets, which right now, obviously, Denver has the upper hand, up 2-1. I still believe Portland's going to win the series. So I think they'll bounce back, get a big game 4 win. But big win for the Lakers last night. I believe they'll have an opportunity next week to possibly close the series out in Phoenix. So let me shift now to the Miami Heat. Now, going into this series against the Milwaukee Bucks, I thought this was going to go 7. I really did. I thought this thing was going to be a 7-gamer, considering last year, even me, who was the biggest Bucks skeptic you could find last year in the bubble. I said, they're not, forget winning the championship. They're not getting to the finals. I don't care they had the MVP, as he should have been, Giannis. I don't care that they had the best record in basketball. Okay, this team does not have enough firepower offensively to compete with Boston or with Toronto, i.e. even, the Toronto at the time was the defending champs. And I thought they'd at least get past Miami. But no, that was a 5-game series. It was, as I mentioned before, the gentleman's sweep. He had a 3-0 lead. Milwaukee, Giannis got hurt in game 4. Middleton had an excellent game 4. They win that game. It goes to game 5, and the Heat close out the series and move on to the Eastern Conference Finals, and eventually the NBA Finals, where they took the Lakers 6 games. And so I'm thinking, okay, we are talking about the defending Eastern Conference champions who met this team, albeit the Bucks are obviously better. They got better in the offseason. First of all, the biggest thing the Bucks did in the offseason was extend Giannis. Get him to that long-term extension. I didn't think it happened. I thought Giannis was going to leave. He did not. He wanted to stay with Milwaukee. Good for him. Good for the Bucks. They extended Giannis. They end up getting Drew Holiday. And then this year they get PJ Tucker. So they clearly got better. But I still thought, while I had the Bucks winning the series, it's going to go 7 games. Again, these are the defending Eastern Conference champions, and they're fully healthy. Jimmy Butler's healthy. Bam's healthy. The 2 shooters, Robinson and Hero, are healthy. Not Duncan Robinson. Goran Dragic is healthy. Like, they should be able to. Andre Iguodala is healthy. They should be able to push this team. And outside of game 1, where after that game, I said, look, you got to be feeling great if you're the Heat. That's what I said. I was dead wrong. But on Monday, I said, look, if you're the Heat going into game 2, hey, let's just get 1. Get home court advantage in the series. And here we go. We got, going home for games 3 and 4. And instead, Bucks look like they're going to close the series out this weekend. And didn't see it coming. Giannis has been a beast in the paint, even though he's taken over 10 seconds at the free throw line as TNT is is starting to show with their free throw clock. He's taken about 11 seconds instead of under 10 seconds, which of course is a violation. But that's another story for another day. They'll worry about that in the next round. But it goes back to if you're the Miami Heat, and listen, Pat Riley is up. Either he or Jerry West are the two best executives in the National Basketball Association, no doubt about it. I mean, Pat Riley is as good of an executive as you'll find. But one of the biggest mistakes he's ever made, if not the biggest mistake he's made, as he president of basketball operations with the Miami Heat, is James Harden was available for a trade. And obviously, you get James Harden, you got Jimmy Butler. This is a team that took the Lakers with LeBron and AD 6 games in the finals. It's like, okay, we're just like one piece away from possibly winning a championship. And James Harden was there. The Heat wanted him as long as they didn't have to give up Tyler Hero. Boy, that didn't look good today, does it? No disrespect to Tyler Hero, but he is not in the same universe as James Harden as a player. I mean, you look at Tyler Hero's numbers last night. Once again, just a dud. 4 for 10 for the field, 1 for 5 from 3. He's played awful in this series. Heck, he hasn't been very good all season. And so, is it safe to say, you have all these people on Twitter, oh, the Lakers won the championship just because they were in the bubble. Well, here the Lakers are. They're fully healthy. They're in control of their first-round series against the 2-seed Phoenix Suns. Again, I said it right here. I think that series is over. I think the Lakers are absolutely going to win at this point, probably in 5 games. And then you look at the Heat, and nobody talked about, well, the Heat got to the finals just because they were in the bubble. Is it possible, if not likely, that's probably why? Right? That they, keep in mind, no travel. And so the Heat, they only had to go from Miami to Orlando. Like they had outside of the Magic, obviously the Magic play in Orlando, but the Magic weren't contenders last year. The Magic haven't been contenders in a decade when they had Dwight Howard. But the point is, he had the shortest distance to travel to the bubble. They had no pressure, no expectations. The Bucks had all the pressure and all the expectations. They had the MVP. They had the best record in the NBA. And the Heat came in playing with house money. And they played excellent defense that series. They shut down Giannis. They shut down Middleton outside of Game 4. And that was a wrap. It was 0-5 games. And then you see now this Heat team, this Heat organization, which wanted James Harden, but not bad enough to trade Tyler Hero. I mean, look, hindsight's 2020, but if you had an opportunity to do that again, you'd probably ship Tyler Hero to Houston in about 2 seconds. So definitely not a good look for the Heat. Again, this is far, far from a dysfunctional organization. This is one of the best organizations in the NBA. It's up there with the Spurs and the Lakers and the Warriors. I mean, this is a very well-run franchise. It has been for years. Going back to the Dwayne Wade era, this is as well run of an organization as you could see. But this is not a good look at all. So, you learn from your mistakes. Miami's a big market. They'll definitely attract more free agents in the future. But you had an opportunity to get one of the best scorers in the history of the game, and the guy who led the league in assists this year, in James Harden, and you didn't do it. So it's coming back to bite you right now. Like it's just painful. I'm watching that game last night, and they were getting stops. Right? Start that third quarter, and they could not generate any offense at all to save their life. Jimmy Butler couldn't score. Bam couldn't score inside. I mean, Brook Lopez is not known for his defense. He's known for his ability to space the floor and knock down the three. He's one of the best three-point shooting bigs in the game. He's not known for shutting down all-star bigs, which Bam Adebayo is, and Bam couldn't get any good looks down low. Robinson was missing. Of course, Hero was missing. Iguodala shooting air balls. I mean, it was bad. I mean, does Miami get a game in game 4? When is game 4? It's tomorrow at 1:30 Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Eastern, 10:30 a.m. Pacific. Maybe they get a game. I wouldn't bank on it. I wouldn't bet on it if I were in Vegas. This series is obviously over. I can't see the Heat. Again, obviously no teams came back from a 3-0 deficit in NBA history, so I don't anticipate that the Heat will be the first. The Bucks are playing amazing. Drew Holiday's been great. Middleton's been great. Giannis has been doing his thing, so I don't see this series going much longer than 5. So I'll get back to the NBA playoffs and those good old Los Angeles Clippers. But let's talk about my man, Tim Tebow. Great guy. I feel like I always got to preface anytime I talk about Tim Tebow with the fact that he's a great human being, which of course he is. There's no doubt about it. But can he play football? Heck, he cannot. He cannot play football. As a quarterback, his natural position, he had a completion percentage of 46%. We've killed Cam Newton for having for any time he's had a 58 or 59% completion percentage, which is not good. Okay, you want your quarterback to be as accurate as possible. Not expecting him to be Drew Brees, 75%, but somewhere in that, Dak Prescott, Matt Ryan, 65% territory. And Tim Tebow has a career completion percentage of 46%. There was a game in Denver, that big magical 2011 season when he, the last 11 games of the season, they throw him in. He goes 7-4. They win the AFC West to make the playoffs and beat the Steelers in that crazy overtime playoff game with the game-winning touchdown to Demaryius Thomas. There was a game, I'm trying to remember, it might have been against Houston. I can't remember exactly who it was against, but there was a game Denver played in 2011 where Tebow did not complete a pass until the third quarter. And I'm supposed to expect that after nearly a decade out of the NFL, he is supposed to transition to a tight end, and he's going to be Trevor Lawrence's big red zone target. I don't buy it. So, man, what's good about Jacksonville is that the press is not going to be tough on Tim, because Jacksonville is, an hour and a half, something like that, away from Gainesville, which is where Tim Tebow built his legacy at Florida as one of the greatest college quarterbacks ever, one of the greatest college players ever. He was, I bash him for his NFL career. I cannot do that with his college career. Heisman, I think he's a 2-time Heisman finalist, won the Heisman one year, won a national championship. He was great at Florida, carving up NFL defenses, bulldozing guys with his running ability, the jump passes, everything. He was amazing at Florida. But he does have that advantage now in Jacksonville, is that the media there, because they love him, because, he did so much good for not just in the community, but on the field. He won a national championship and helped them become one of the great programs in college football, which they still are to this day with his old offensive coordinator, Dan Mullen, running the show. So the reports out of Jacksonville, so OTAs are going on right now. And, Tim's at tight end. He's wearing number 85. I checked. He still has the highest selling jersey, actually the top 2 highest selling jerseys on the NFLshop.com. So his popularity it's not Tebow mania, but it's people are talking about Tim. I'm talking about Tim right now. The reports out of Jacksonville are that he didn't drop a pass in practice. Well, isn't that the bare minimum? I don't think we're talking about George Kittle or Zach Ertz or Travis Kelce or Gronk not dropping any passes in practice. As AI once said, we're talking about practice, man. Is this what we've come to? Is that he didn't drop a pass in practice? Listen, I'm not picking on Tim. I love the guy. I really do. He's obviously in phenomenal shape. That's Trevor Lawrence said that. He said, listen, he's in fantastic shape. We see the pictures. His biceps have biceps, for crying out loud. He's in amazing shape. He's got a tight end's body now. He's transformed his body into a tight end's body. Credit Tim for doing that. But he's not going to make the team, guys. And even if he does, come on. Come on. This is not going to work. We all know the only reason he got an opportunity in Jacksonville is because his old head coach, Urban Meyer, got the job. The fact that The Jacksonville Jaguars had the number 1 pick. They took a guy in Trevor Lawrence who's been hyped up for 3 years, if not more. We knew, I talk about it all the time on this show. After Trevor Lawrence demolished Alabama, 44-16 to be exact, in the national championship in 2019, and just played unbelievable against a Nick Saban coach defense. I always make the joke, we didn't know who the first overall, at that time, after the championship game, we didn't know who the first overall pick was going to be in 2019. Eventually, it turned out, okay, it's going to be Kyler Murray, but we didn't know that after the Clemson-Bama game. We darn sure didn't know who the first pick was going to be in 2020. We didn't know Joe Burrow was going to explode and have the greatest season that any college quarterback's ever had. We didn't know that. But we did know, because it was going to be his first year of eligibility to leave college for the NFL draft, we knew, Trevor Lawrence going number 1 overall in 2021. Like, that's, duh. Who's going to be the second quarterback taken in 2021? That's what we were talking about. And the fact that all this build-up, Trevor Lawrence is, according to Kuiper and every, McShay and every draft analyst you could find, are saying this is a guy who is one of the top 5 prospects ever coming out of college. And he is the second most talked about offseason acquisition of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the most highest discussed Jacksonville Jaguar who was acquired in the 2021 offseason is a backup tight end who has not been in the NFL in a decade. I'm sorry. It's ridiculous. So again, isn't this kind of the minimum that he's that he's catching passes in practice? Gosh, I'd hope so. It's I would hope, if you're going to play tight end, I kind of need you to be able to catch. I mean, that's kind of the minimum, right? So this is just kind of a circus. Look, rooting for Tim, always have, always will. I'm always going to root for Tim Tebow, but this is a circus. So let's get back to the NBA playoffs. Those good old Los Angeles Clippers, they never cease to disappoint you, right? Talked about them yesterday. I'm done talking about games 1 and 2. Well, maybe. Game 3's tonight. Dallas Mavericks, 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific time on ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. And it's do or die for the Clippers. You lose, you go down 3-0. Good night. You're not coming back from a 3-0 deficit. Maybe a steal game 4 because Dallas lets their guard down. That tends to happen a lot. A team takes a 3-0 lead. They kind of let their guard down game 4. Oh, okay, this team's serious. Okay, we'll just go and close them out in game 5. Okay. I said Clippers in the 6th before the series started. Now, for that to happen, of course, they'd have to win 4 straight, and I don't anticipate that happening the way Luka and that entire Mavericks team is playing. Porzingis is playing great. Hardaway's shot the ball incredibly. You got Jalen Brunson and Finney Smith. I mean, that whole Dallas team is playing out of their minds right now. And so here we go. This is official. This is not an elimination game, obviously. The Clippers season will not officially come to an end if they fall tonight against the Mavericks on the road. But it might as well be the unofficial end, right? It's funny. Last year, they blow the 3-1 lead, and Paul George says, well, it wasn't really championship or bust. What we needed was playing time together. We needed chemistry. And so it was Doc Rivers' fault for that, right? And so they fired Doc Rivers, a move that I immediately, it was actually, the breaking news happened while I was doing one of my shows. The breaking news comes in. I said, I hate this move by the Clippers. This is a championship coach. At some point, it's on the players, okay? So they fired Doc Rivers because it was his fault. And so they hire a guy who was on Doc's staff, a championship-winning coach, Ty Lue. Okay. So we go into the season. Clippers, have made no bones about it. They're going after the Lakers. They want to win the 2021 championship and avenge what they believe was a championship, stolen from them, right? Because they blew the 3-1 lead to Denver. Okay. And so they let Montrezl Harrell go in the offseason because Montrez was a bad chemistry guy. Oh, okay. So we go into midseason, and it's Lou Williams. And so Lou Williams gets traded to the Atlanta Hawks. And since Lou got there, and obviously, as I mentioned before, since they fired Lloyd Pierce and Nate McMillan became the interim head coach, Atlanta has, no pun intended, taken flight. The Hawks have taken flight. And the Clippers are right back in the same boat, despite all that. Eventually, it's got to be a situation of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George looking themselves in the mirror and saying, it's on us. Nobody's going to blame Nicholas Batum if they lose this series, or Luke Kennard, or Ivica Zubas, or who else? Rajon Rondo. Nobody's going to blame those guys if the Clippers end up falling in this series. It's all going to be placed at the feet of Kawhi and Paul George. Now, here's the thing with Kawhi Leonard, because we know what Paul George is. Okay, he's great in the regular season. He's a multi-time All-Star. A couple of years ago, he was an MVP finalist. I think he finished third behind Harden and Giannis. He was amazing. But in the biggest playoff games, he's not just a shell of himself. He is flat out terrible. Like, I mean, by any player standards, he's terrible. Inefficient, hitting the side of the backboard on corner threes. He's bad in elimination games, long story short. But with Kawhi Leonard, and here's the mistake that I made when the Clippers, of course, went out and got him a couple of years ago in the offseason. The mistake that we made was, he can lead a team to a championship. No. He can be the best player on a championship-winning team. There's a big difference in being the best player on a championship team and leading a team to a championship, right? In San Antonio, he was the best player. He was the finals MVP in 2014 when the Spurs knocked off the Heat in the finals in 5 games in 2014. Okay? But Duncan, Parker, Ginobili, those were the leaders. You say, well, what about in Toronto? Toronto hadn't won anything. Like, at least Duncan, Parker, Ginobili, they had won 4 rings before that. Okay. Well, Toronto had no history of even getting to the finals. Toronto never been to the finals until Kawhi got there. And, of course, Kawhi in the 2019 postseason was incredible. I mean, he had great moment after great moment after great moment. Give him all the credit. But he wasn't the leader. Kyle Lowry was the leader, right? That team went. If you look at some of those games, Kawhi had some big games against Philadelphia and Milwaukee and, against Golden State in a couple of those losses. That team went as Kyle Lowry went. What people forget is that game 6 where they closed out Golden State in the finals. Kawhi Leonard dropped I think it was 25 points, something like that. He was in the mid-20s. But who was it who set the tone for the Raptors in the first couple of minutes? Kyle Lowry. Hit 3 straight threes, start off with 9 points to start the game. That was Toronto rode that momentum to the win. And so now that the Clippers do not have a quote-unquote leader, Kawhi is being exposed for his lack of leadership intangibles. And we talk about, intangibles. What is that? Well, Devin Booker's the best player in the Suns. I just talked about him earlier in the show. He's one of the best scorers in the game. He dropped 70 a few years ago. 70. In his second year in the league, he dropped 70 points in a game against the Boston Celtics. But as soon as the Suns' leader, Chris Paul, is limited by injury, Devin Booker's not exactly the guy who can lead you to a big win on the road against the Lakers. Even at home in a game 2, you got an opportunity to take a 2-0 series lead and put all the pressure on the Lakers. And he couldn't do that. So with Kawhi Leonard, he's obviously one of the top 5 players on planet Earth. Okay? He's a great defensive player, can get any shot he wants. He just dropped 41 points in game 2. But he's not a leader. He cannot lead you to a championship. I believe the Clippers are going to lose tonight. I think it'll be close. I think it'll come down to the final minutes. And that is exactly what the Clippers don't want. Because I've read the stat over and over. that in the last 2 minutes of what they call clutch time moments, last 2 minutes and the game is within 5 points. That's what the NBA stat guys consider clutch time moments. The Clippers are the second worst team in the whole NBA. The only team that is worse is the Houston Rockets, who had the worst record in the league. The Clippers are great on paper. They're well coached. They're great defensively. I believe they finished 4th in defensive efficiency this year. A great defensive team, right? They can get any shot they want on offense. Kawhi can get any shot he wants in the mid-range. Paul George can knock down the three, get his shot, gets the paint, dunking on guys. But we all know the playoffs. I don't care how good you are. You're not just going to roll through without getting tested. And the Clippers have been tested in the first round by a team they apparently thought they could just breeze by because they tanked the last 2 games of the regular season against Houston and OKC to avoid the Lakers and play Dallas, which I don't know why they want Dallas because, listen, a year ago, all the breaks went to the Clippers because Porzingis gets ejected in game 1 of a tight game. He gets hurt, I believe, in game 5. So he missed the rest of that and game 6, which ended up being the clincher. The Clippers were fully healthy, and the series still went 6 games because Luka was Luka. He was great, and he does not fear the Clippers. We've seen that over and over again. We saw the Wikipedia edit that obviously it had to be some Dallas Mavericks fans did this on Wikipedia. It was it was like the Wikipedia page for the Dallas Mavericks. And it said this, it was of the Los Angeles Clippers. It was like the Los Angeles Clippers are owned by Luka Doncic. So, I mean, he kind of owns them. He kind of does. Because anytime he's had any legitimate help in the playoffs against the Clippers, it's been real trouble for Kawhi and PG-13, or should I say Pandemic P. Because in the playoffs, we know what he is. It's a pandemic. It's bad. He's missing shots all over the place, airballing threes, and he airballed a 3 in game 1, I think it was, hitting the side of the backboard. I mean, that's Paul George in big closeout games. And so I think it's over for the Clippers. I think they're going to get swept. I think they're going to lose these game 3 and 4 against Dallas on the road. And as in the words of Patrick Beverley, Cancun on 3. Is this the last topic? Yeah, it is. Last topic of the day. Mac Jones. A guy who a lot of people love coming out of Alabama, and people like me are, let's just say skeptics. I think that's the best way to put it. Skeptics. Why am I a skeptic of Mac Jones, you ask, if you are new to the show? Thank you for stopping by. Why am I a skeptic of Mac Jones? Well, we're talking about a guy who in an NFL, which more than ever is about mobile quarterbacks, Mahomes, Wilson, Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Dak, Kyler Murray, the list goes on and on and on. Those are the guys that can get outside the pocket, move around. If the play breaks down, they are able to get outside and accurately distribute the football. That's what they do. Or if they have to scramble, they can scramble. Mac Jones cannot do that. By the way, Booger McFarland during the draft on ESPN, they're showing, when the 49ers had their selection, and I thought they're going to take Mac Jones. I said, man, y'all got to take Trey Lance. Like I'm beating the table. Y'all have to take Trey Lance. You got to do it. And I'm thinking, they're going to take Mac Jones and screw up their franchise for the next 5 years. And so I guess ESPN also fell under this assumption. And so they showed, kind of tape for Mac Jones. And Booger was showing tape like anytime he got outside of the pocket, he got chased down by defensive tackles. Not the linemen, not your great quick edge rushers. No, your defensive tackles, your run stoppers are the guys getting to Mac Jones. Oh, he's accurate. Mac Jones, let's think about this. At one point at Alabama, had 5 First round wide receivers. Judy, first round. Ruggs, first round. Who's the guy? Devontae Smith, first round. Who's the other guy? I'm trying to remember the quick guy. Waddle, first round. He also had Mickens. He had Najee Harris, first round pick at running back, who looks great, by the way, I've heard in OTAs with the Steelers, for what it's worth. A great offensive line. The greatest coach ever, Nick Saban. An SEC last year, which wasn't great and certainly was not great defensively. That's not even arguable. The SEC looked like the Big Ten last year defensively. I mean, Florida had a bad defense. Auburn had a bad defense. Georgia's was hit and miss. That was the SEC last year. Like, you had about 2 or 3 elite teams. Bama, Florida, Georgia, and A&M. So that's 4 teams. 4 teams that we had any respect for in the SEC. The rest of the conference was kind of blah. Auburn took a step back. LSU took a step back. Tennessee took a step back. It wasn't a great conference last year. That did help Mac Jones a little. And so when guys are running open, when they're showing tape of Mac Jones throwing the guys open by 15 yards, boy, I hope you can distribute the football accurately. Okay? He clearly, I mean, it's been all over the internet. He's not having an NFL body. And you know, when you look at Trey Lance, what do you have in Trey Lance? Big kid, can run, accurate, great arm, played at North Dakota State, guys. We didn't get to see him in college. You know, you got to go on YouTube and watch Trey Lance's highlights because he wasn't on TV. Mac Jones was on TV. Trevor Lawrence was on TV. Occasionally, Zach Wilson was on TV. Right? Justin Fields was on TV. We didn't get to see Trey Lance. You got to go on YouTube to watch his college highlights, his college tape. And you had draft analysts everywhere saying, man, I don't know what teams are thinking of taking Mac Jones over, what the 49ers are thinking of taking Mac Jones over Trey Lance. And ultimately, they did not. They shocked me. I was glad they did it because I'm like, man, thank you. I mean, that's what I've been saying on this show for months. In an NFL, you say, well, Tom Brady. 2 things about Tom Brady. A, gets the ball out quickly. As well as anybody to this day, Tom Brady's going into year 22 of his career, age 44 years old, can still get the ball out quickly. Okay? Has he been mobile? No. But he gets the ball out quickly, and man, is he shifty in the pocket. But that's after 10, 20 years of work. You think Mac Jones is going to come into the league and have Tom Brady's pocket awareness? I'm going to go no. Hardly anybody, if anybody, has Tom Brady's pocket awareness. And so I just look at it and I say, what is up? So Kendrick Bourne, one of the Patriots' prized free agent acquisitions. I mean, everybody in New England, oh, we got Kendrick Bourne. I'm like, what did he do in San Francisco? Like, I don't know why everybody's jumping up and down about Kendrick Bourne. He's a nice receiver. He's a 3. He's not a 2. And Kendrick Bourne's talking about Mac Jones has that swag. You know who else had swag? Johnny Manziel. How'd that turn out? You know who else has a lot of swag? Drew Lock. Denver is probably going to play Teddy Bridgewater over Drew Lock because Drew Lock has been abysmal. Certainly he was in year 2. He was reckless in year 1. That should have been a big red flag for all of us going into year 2. He was awful last year. John Elway, that whole Broncos organization is going to move on from him at some point, at least this year, possibly with Teddy Bridgewater. No disrespect to Teddy. He's a good quarterback. He's a low-end starter, high-end backup. But that should not happen ever if you take a guy in the second round and you basically say, this is our quarterback of the future. This is our franchise guy. This is the dude that's going to take us places. I don't care about swag. Is he a leader? Okay. Is he mobile? Heck, you know, something I felt like was not talked about enough with Trevor Lawrence, and I didn't get it. I really didn't get it. He is more mobile than people give him credit for. Maybe it's because of his frame, 6'6". Trevor Lawrence could run. Did y'all see the run against Ohio State a couple years back in the semifinal game? Dude ran 69 yards and was outrunning defensive backs at Ohio State. Ohio State's arguably DBU. Trevor Lawrence was outrunning those guys. We all know Justin Fields can move. Zach Wilson occasionally. We darn sure know Trey Lance can move. He ran for 1,100 yards in college in 2019. Mac Jones is getting run down by defensive tackles. Okay, so if we're talking, and New England's got a decent offensive line, so this is obviously going to help him if he does play this year, which I don't know in what universe Cam wouldn't be the starter over Mac Jones, but I don't know, crazier things have happened. But if Mac does play this year in meaningful snaps, like if he's not coming in garbage time, like if he gets some starts this year and he comes in, and if, he's going against, say, let's think about the Buffalo Bills defensive line, which is great. And they're constantly getting in his face. He can't move and scramble. And he can't move out and find an open receiver like Trevor Lawrence can, or Justin Fields can, or Trey Lance can. So I'm sorry. I don't see. By the way, we fell for this last year. My bad. Fell for this with Tua. I thought Tua was going to come in, and if he was healthy, be the best quarterback coming out in 2020. And he looked really limited. Why? He can't get outside the pocket. Is he accurate? Darn right he's accurate. Some of those throws he made at Alabama was like, man, that's special. That is NFL stuff right there. But he can't move. And in the NFL today, heck, offensive coordinators design plays for quarterbacks to move around the pocket. Look at Buffalo's offense. Look at Kansas City's offense. They want to get their quarterbacks outside the pocket and give them an opportunity to make big plays down the field. Can't do that with Mac Jones. So I'm sorry. I don't get what people see with this guy. Okay, people talking about, is he going to be the next Tom Brady? Newsflash, no disrespect to Belichick. Belichick's the greatest defensive coach ever. He's not the greatest coach ever, but he's the greatest defensive coach ever. Tom Brady, with an average is kind. A bad receiving core his last year in New England, Tom Brady looked awful. And once you gave Tom Brady a great receiving core, he won the Super Bowl. Are you telling me that Mac Jones had better receivers in college than he's going to have at New England? I mean, N'Keal Harry, Kendrick Bourne. I like the additions of Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. I like that. But it's an average at best receiving core. And you're telling me he's gonna come in, and if he does even get an opportunity to come in and make them a playoff team? Yeah, y'all tripping here. I really don't see what people see with this guy. When you look at his tape, he's accurate. Yeah, guys are open by 15 yards. I'd hope. He cannot move outside of the pocket. By the way, let's think about a quarterback who's not mobile, who has success in this league. Jared Goff. Up and down, inconsistent. And Jared Goff was the number one pick in 2016. He was the number one pick. And what did the Rams do? Up and down, up and down. Big game against Tampa Bay, bad game against the Jets. They moved on from him. And he's in Detroit now, which is basically a death sentence, unfortunately, if you're a quarterback. So sorry, Jared Goff. I feel bad for you having to play with the Detroit, what are the kneecap biters, according to Dan Campbell, new head coach. But that's the reality. That if you can't move in the NFL in 2021, at best case scenario, you're going to be really inconsistent. Because if you're facing, let's think about Washington, for example. Washington, you've got Chase Young, you got the kid out of Mississippi State, Montez Sweat. Okay, you got quick edge rushers that get to the quarterback quickly. You got to be able to escape and move and make something happen. Daniel Jones can move. Daniel Jones' biggest problem is he turns the ball over. If he correct that, then maybe the Giants might have something. Daniel Jones can move. Mac Jones can't. So this is the reality that the New England Patriots are facing. Like, y'all, if you got, and I don't think the Patriots are going to make the playoffs. If they do, though, if they want to, y'all better go with Cam. Okay? Yeah, as long as Cam's healthy all season, yeah, you guys at least have a shot. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, the Patriots have no shot. They've got a shot. Sure, I don't think they will, but they've got a shot. As long as they go with Cam Newton. If they go with Mac Jones, good night. Not against the Jets defense. Certainly the Miami's defense and Buffalo's defense. That's going to present some real problems for a guy who cannot move. So I really genuinely don't see what some people see in Mac Jones. I said this back when Bama crushed Ohio State in the national championship game, and that's kind of when the Mac Jones hype started. I'm like, guys, this guy is not a franchise quarterback. Well, apparently New England thinks he is, and New England has not done a good job drafting in the last 5 years. So there's that on the table. So with that is all the time we have for today's show. Thank you all so much for stopping by. Be sure to catch Carving It Up Monday, as always, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. To our podcast audience, appreciate y'all listening. You will listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, or excuse me, no Apple Podcasts anymore. Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Anchor, as well as wherever you listen to your podcast. Be sure to subscribe to YouTube channel, Carving It Up with Bryson Carver. Hope everybody has a great weekend. Please continue to stay safe. God bless you all, and